What happens when fabric becomes a plea from the wild? Sue Sherman's powerful quilt, Dear Humans, delivers an urgent message that will stop you in your tracks. Let's get into it with Sue Sherman. Hello and welcome to the Quilter on Fire podcast. I'm Brandy Maslowski, a former firefighter turned quilt professional. As a quilt teacher, speaker, and judge, I travel the globe to bring quilters more joy and less overwhelm. Not too long ago, the quilty life I now lead was just a dream. After many lessons and a lot of hard work, I've transitioned from juggling a day job and a quilting business on the side to becoming a full-time quiltpreneur. I started the Quilter on Fire podcast to create a vibrant community of quilters, artists, and makers. Each episode brings you inspiring stories, insights, and the pure joy of guests from all over the world. If their stories uplift you and spark joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and ignite that creative fire within you. My guest today is Sue Sherman, a national and international award-winning quilt artist who transforms white cotton into breathtaking wildlife portraits. Through precise painting with dyes and thread, Sue gives voice to the animal kingdom, creating lifelike images inspired by her travels. Her work has earned recognition at prestigious events, including Houston's International Quilt Festival, the Canadian National Juried Show, AQS Paducah in the USA, and Festival of Quilts Birmingham in the UK. As a juried artist member of SAQA, Sue combines artistry with activism, hoping her stunning textile creations will inspire urgency around protecting Earth's creatures and their habitats. So let's explore the story of Sue Sherman. Sue, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Brandy. I'm honored to be here.
Oh my gosh, I've been seeing your incredible quilts pop up everywhere in award-winning style. So I'm so excited to have you on the show. And I love to start by taking a look back. So let's take a look back at where you got started. When do you first remember putting stitch to fabric?
Ooh, I think I was about 5. So like a lot of kids of my generation anyway, the other kids would play with Barbie dolls and I would sew clothes for my Barbie dolls. And just really as long as I can remember, I've been sewing and knitting and all those things. My mom used to do all that. So I did learn from her.
Yeah. So speaking of that, were there certain people in your life that had a real creative impact on you early on?
Early on, I guess I had an art teacher who was memorable in high school. And given that I never took any art after high school, I guess that was a pretty strong influence. I also had a Spanish teacher in high school who was something of an activist herself in particularly environmental concerns that really were quite a new thing in the 70s. So she got me coming home and telling my mother that she shouldn't use the dark colored toilet paper and Kleenex anymore that were so popular at the time. And it got me thinking, and I guess I never stopped thinking about those things.
Wow, it got you thinking early on, and look at where you are now. That's incredible. So can you tell us about your very first quilt?
My very first quilt I started in 2009, and it was a bed quilt. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I'd been sewing all those years. You have to appreciate I'm from an English background. Quilting is not really an English thing. So no one in my family did it. So I just walked into a quilt shop and tried to buy fabric and a pattern. I thought it was like making a dress. It was not. And I hand quilted that quilt. It took me 3 years, and I just decided I would never ever make another quilt in my life. So it was an interesting experience, but my second quilt was a little bit different experience, and I got the bug then.
Oh, you got the bug on your second time around. So did you make a transition from some kind of lifelong career into quilting, or did you sort of start quilting while you had a career?
I was doing quilting, but not my own designs. I used to be an engineer, so it was a pretty demanding job and didn't really have the space in my head to create. So I would buy patterns of quilts or and in some very complicated things. I had, I found the time with my hands. I would do it at night watching TV, and that part I could do, but I couldn't be creative. So it was when I retired from my engineering job in 2017 that I made my first art quilt, and it was the first quilt I ever designed myself. And I pretty much never looked back after that.
Wow. So you mentioned your second quilt was the one that got you kind of started on your path. So did you do traditional quilting for a while before you made your first art quilt?
Yes. And I also, in that period with my second quilt and moving along there, I was living in Hawaii for a little bit because of my work. So I really got into the Hawaiian style of quilting. So a lot of hand needle turn applique and hand quilting. And it was a cultural thing, a very social activity. And I made several Hawaiian quilts and I really loved them. I learned a lot doing that too.
Yeah. So was there kind of a defining moment when you were making your first or any art quilt along the way where you kind of realized, okay, this is my thing. Art quilting is going to be what I'm doing?
Well, pretty much I retired from my job on the Friday, and then on the Monday, I started my first art quilt. But I really was kind of floundering around at first with lots of different styles, not really knowing what I wanted. The big thing that happened to me was in 2018. I had one of these quilts accepted at Paducah, and I went down to Paducah to the show, and I took a class from Hollis Chatelaine on painting with thickened dyes. And that was the moment that changed everything, because then I realized that all these photographs I was taking of animals on my trips could be made into realistic art quilts. And I had never been able to do that before.
Oh, so it kind of forged a connection in your mind between your travels, the photos you love to take, and how to translate that into art.
Yeah, because up until then, the only way I had been able to do realistic artwork on a quilt was with raw edge applique. And there's a lot of good things about raw edge applique, but it just didn't quite achieve what I wanted, not in the way that the dye can.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just take a moment to step out of the story and talk about where are you living now and who are your loved ones that you share your world with every day?
Well, I live in Newmarket, Ontario, which is about 50 or 60 kilometers north of Toronto. And I live in the house I've lived in since 1981. My kids were grown up in this house and left, but my husband and I still live here. And it's a lovely place.
Oh, it sounds nice. Okay, so when I'm talking to art quilters, especially multiple international award-winning art quilters, I love to talk about design. So when you see something in the world that sparks an idea for you, how do you capture that?
With a photograph. And through the years that I've been quilting, or at least that I've been making my art quilts, I've tried to get a little better at photography. I've certainly got better at camera equipment now than I used to. I only use my own photography in my quilts, which is limiting, I understand, because I don't have the resources to spend 2 weeks in a blind waiting for a lion to roar. But
Yeah.
but I like the idea that the quilts are completely my own, right from the starting of seeing the animal in the wild to making the photograph, or
Yeah.
to making the quilt.
Oh, and there's just something so inspiring about original design, right? It's your own photos of your own things. I just love that. So once you've captured an idea, well, let me just ask a little side question because I struggle with this. Do you have a good way of storing your photos? Like, do you use a folder system? Do you have them organized in any way? Or do you just have a million photos on your phone or on your computer?
I have them in folders. So if you look And by this point, and I shoot raw, so each file is almost 100 megabytes.
Massive.
So yeah, I got a terabyte hard drive that I use. But yeah, there's a folder for every trip.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I get home from a trip, I'll sort my photographs in ways that are helpful for quilting. So I might have one folder that I use. Say we took a trip to Kenya a while back.
Yeah.
And in my main folder, I've got all of the photographs, and then I've got like a slideshow. But in my quilting folder, I've got a subfolder of all the Kenya photos. And under that, I got a folder for antelopes and a folder for this kind of animal and that kind of animal. So that was important.
Yeah, that's really smart. I mean, I have 20, 30,000 photos just on my phone alone. So I need to come up with an organization system. So you're inspiring me. Okay, so I do actually have one little folder on my phone where I put quilt inspiration. So I do shove photos in there, but it's really general. So let's continue talking about design. I love to dive into the mind of a creator like you. So what's your process kind of from concept to reality? Like you have this incredible photo of a lion or whatever. And do you ever do any kind of pencil sketching? Do you go straight to your computer? Do you go straight to the canvas or the paint on cloth? What do you do?
Not all of my photographs or not all of my quilts are just an animal, but some of them are. So I'll talk about it like that.
Okay.
But I basically make a line drawing from the photograph. So on pencil and paper, or sometimes with a Sharpie if I'm confident.
Yeah.
And then I'll make it at whatever scale I want. Sometimes I use my printer to blow it up. And when I get it to the scale I want, then I trace it with a pencil onto my fabric. And I've discovered a lot of people will print their photograph and trace it from that, but it can be really hard to see the lines very clearly. And sometimes, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I found a really clever hack for that. And that's, I take my photograph, I blow it up to whatever size I want, may not fit on my screen, but then I take my tracing paper and I trace it right off my computer screen.
Oh, okay.
And it's like having a light box and a photograph all in one. And then, then I can move the image around without adjusting the zoom level. And I can basically trace the entire thing. And it works out really well. And it's a lot cheaper than having a 36-inch poster made of your photograph.
Yeah, or trying to pull out some kind of projector or something. Yeah.
Projectors have very terrible resolution.
Yeah, and it sounds like a really good tip or trick that people can use is to go right on their computer screen. That's cool. Okay, so where do you pull your color inspiration from? Is it the actual colors you really try to go with of the photos that you take?
Yeah, I do usually try to go with the colors of the original colors. Thick and dye. If you've ever worked with dye, you'll know that it's not a really exact science getting those colors to turn out. So sometimes I have to over dye, but sometimes I'm left with a color that's not exactly what I was aiming for. I tend not to be as fussed about that as I might. Mostly, if the antelope's not exactly the right shade, very few viewers are gonna complain about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. Okay, so I have, a whole bunch of quilts in my mind that I've been pouring through your gallery. What do you think it is with your work that really resonates with the viewer? Like, why can't I get up close to one of your pieces at a quilt show because there's 20 people standing in front of it?
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I think the one you're probably talking about is Dear Humans.
Yeah.
And I've been told by more than one person, so I think it's right, that if you look at that image, and I have it right now on my background on my computer, right in the middle, you've got all these animal butts, right? You're looking at the animal butts, but right in the middle, there is a giraffe that really sort of hogs the limelight because its he is turning around, looking at you, the viewer, kind of giving you the evil eye. And I've been told by many people that it's that sort of look in the giraffe's eye that really draws people into that whole piece.
Yeah, so great. I can't wait to talk about that one in more detail because it's just so inspiring. And exactly that thing happened. I was trying to get up to it at the show. And I was just like, okay, I'll come back later. There's too many people around here. But okay, so let's dive into the business of Sue Sherman for a little bit. So what do you bring to the world with Sue Sherman Quilts in a nutshell?
Well, I make the quilts that you've seen. I have done teaching, but I don't do it much now. Mostly, I just want to make my quilts and show my quilts and have, hopefully at some point, people buy my quilts. And sorry, I say it like that, but people do buy them. And that's kind of what I think I like to do the most. The teaching I found is not, it's something I do get asked to do sometimes. And I do trunk shows as well. I think if people ask and they really want me, then I'm really happy to give them a trunk show. But I'm not out there looking for trunk shows.
Yeah. Well, it's really actually admirable because you have a nice boundary on your time where it's important to you that making is what's happening in your life. So I think that's pretty admirable.
Thank you. And I should mention that a lot of that just has to do with my age. I started this, I was already in my 60s, and I do not wish to get to 85 and find I can't quilt anymore and wish I'd spent more time quilting and less time teaching.
Yeah.
There's always that in the back of my head, but I know you were too polite to say it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so great, though, that you have that decision because when you're an award-winning quilter and multiple award-winning at all these different shows with this incredible quilt, for instance, people want a piece of you. They want you to come to their guild. They want you to be a keynote speaker at the show, and they want to pull you in all the directions. And if you have the wherewithal to say, nope, I'm going to keep making art, then that's a good thing, I think. Okay, so let's touch on the website a little bit because there's all kinds of gorgeous beauty over there. So tell us your website and what will we find there?
Well, my website is SueShermanQuilts.com. I think if you just Google Sue Sherman Quilts, it'll come up pretty fast. It mostly just talks about quilts. There's some recent, some awards and things that I put up there, but mostly the main part of it is just a big gallery with lots of quilts that I've done over the years and things that I just want to share with people.
Yeah, and you have a newsletter as well, right? So people can scroll to the bottom and sign up for your newsletter. So what kind of things do you talk about in your newsletter?
I just talk about what's new in my life, new things that I've finished. Any new shows that I've been to. If there's been an award, I'll mention that. And my newsletter is, I say it's monthly-ish. And I always like to say that it comes with a guarantee that if I have nothing to say, then I just won't issue a newsletter.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It's not going to be filled up with bump.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now there's one thing I really wanted to talk to you about, which is collaborations, because you have a critique group that you work with, and this is really important to you. So tell me about that.
Well, let me start by saying it's not really collaboration.
Yeah.
Because with a critique group, we're all individual artists with our own individual practice, and we do all very different work. But what we do is get together a couple of times a month. And this was something we started during COVID when no one could get out. And the idea was that we wanted to be able to talk to other and mostly juried artists, members of SAQA, so other people whose opinion we respect. And just to be able to talk about an idea or, I've got this quilt, it doesn't quite look right to me. Can you help me work through what's wrong? And so over the years, we started out being very rigid, following a process for critique. And now it's pretty loosey-goosey and we're all good friends. So that's a nice part of it too. But I think there's two really important things with the critique group. First of all, that it's independent. When you get critique of your work, you're only going to get it if you ask for it, for one thing. It's not just open season on talking crap about my quilt.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that nobody's telling you how to design. They're just giving you ideas. So when I walk away from a meeting and I've talked about a piece that I might have had a hurdle I'm trying to get over, they might have helped me through it, but nobody in that group is going to think that they've designed my quilt. It's still my work, and I may or may not choose to accept what they've told me anyway. It's still very much, I'm the designer, but this is like a sounding board. I would highly recommend to anybody who's trying to do design work really in any visual art field. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So rather than a collaboration where you're all coming together to do one thing together, it's really like feedback and support and a group that really lifts you up, right? And gives you some direction if you're struggling and things like that.
Yes, I'm nodding like an idiot here, but of course the people on the podcast can't see it. But yes, you're quite right. That's what it is.
Okay, so let's just take a little step back in time because I believe this might have been a little while ago, but you once designed a line of fabric. So tell me about that.
I did. It was actually the first art quilt that I ever did in this painting with thick and dye process, and it was penguins. And I just had this idea that I thought they'd make a nice line of fabric, and I suggested it to Northcott. I was quite surprised when they said yes, but it ended up being the Magdalena collection, which came out during COVID. So it was a bit weird as a fabric release, but I bought quite a bit of it, and I did sell it for quite a while in my Etsy shop. And it was a fabulous experience to sort of learn about the whole quilting world, the fabric world, and the pattern design world. There was a lot of doors that opened up for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it must have felt great to have it in your hands for the first time, the actual fabric.
Oh, yeah. And to see my name on the selvage, that was the most exciting part.
Yeah, quilters know what it means to have your name on a selvage with all those little dots beside it, right? Okay, great. So I don't want to skim past your lectures because you have a wonderful trunk show. And if you are really enticed into doing a lecture, you will do one. So what's your Quilt Canada lecture all about?
It is about activist art. And I think in this whole career of mine and what I'm doing, I've really evolved from someone who was kind of apologetic about having an environmental message in my quilts to really embracing that, because I'm discovering that people actually like to see that. It brings a whole new level of meaning to my work.
Oh, that sounds like a really good lecture. And that leads us right into my next question. I think I know already that your answer is Dear Humans, but is there a quilt or a quilt project that's been most memorable for you?
Yeah, I think Dear Humans, because of the doors that it has opened for me. Dear Humans was at Quilt Canada, and that's the experience you talked about, where a lot of people were looking at it. And it won the Visitor's Choice Award at Quilt Canada that year. And it got a lot of buzz on social media. Like, I've never seen that many likes and comments on anything I've ever posted before. And even since then. And that was a few years back. And then it went to Houston, where it won the Superior Thread Award for thread mastery.
Yeah,
and that was a big deal. It's like, that's a huge festival.
Yeah,
and to be one of those 6 quilts at the very front when people walk into this massive room, that was so exciting. And they had school groups come through, and they were all expecting to have to look at boring quilts, and the first thing they see when they walk in is all these animal butts, and the kids just loved it.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Okay. So before you go on to the next couple of awards that this quilt has won, I want to talk about the thread work, because just look at that giraffe butt. Like, how did you get that texture on there?
Well, I'm going to say it's not rocket science. It's just a lot of back and forth with the thread. Altogether, I estimate there's about 1 million stitches in this quilt.
Wow.
So that's a lot of stitches, and my Q20 has a stitch counter, so I
Oh,
kind of know.
yeah.
But the trick is with all that quilting, and with each animal is quilted in a different way. Some are really dense, some are really loose.
Yeah.
The trick is to get it to lie flat after you've done all that quilting. And the quilting, the writing in the sky is in a bit of a circular arch. So again, that tends to give a certain shape to a quilt. So I'm very, very fussy about starting in the middle and working out. I use a quilting hoop now, a traditional wooden quilting hoop, and I turn it upside down and use it on my quilting surface.
Okay.
And on a really big quilt like this that has a lot of different quilting styles, there's no getting around it. It's after you trim it, it's going to be wonky. So I actually block them pretty heavily as well.
Yeah.
So it will have been stapled onto a frame, taut,
Yeah.
and wet, and then I let it dry overnight, and then I trim it. And that's
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work,
It is.
but it makes it flat and it hangs beautifully in a show, right? Okay, so I interrupted you there when you were talking about the awards it won. So go on to the next couple of awards that it won.
Well, only one other, because I've only ever entered it in 3 shows, really.
Okay.
And the other one was in Birmingham at the Festival of Quilts, where it won Best of Show. That was so exciting.
How exciting. And that is a lovely, beautiful, massive show in the UK. And so how did you find out? Were you there at the show?
I was there at the show. I was actually staying with my aunt and uncle who lived really near there. And I went to the show, and, they tell you in advance that you've won something, but they don't tell you what.
Yeah.
And as they get nearer and nearer to the end of the show, you're thinking, oh my God, maybe I've won Best of Show.
Yeah.
And I never expected, an animal quilt to win a big award like that, but it did. It was very exciting.
Oh.
And I spent quite a lot of time standing in front of it at the show and got a lot of people engaged in conversation. And that was fun.
Oh, that is so wonderful. I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I'm so proud that you are Canadian and going worldwide with this international success. So can you tell us the story behind this quilt?
Well, as I mentioned before, we went to Kenya, and obviously taking photographs of animals everywhere we went. And I got quite a lot of photographs. But if you've ever taken photographs in the wild, you'll probably be aware that they rarely just stand there looking at you posing for the camera.
Yeah.
They're mostly just minding their own business, eating or looking around. Sometimes they're running away from you if they see you. So you end up with a lot of animal butts. And I thought at first that I might delete them, but then I realized I had enough to do something with. It did take a lot of sort of thinking and pondering, well over a year of just trying to work it out before I put pencil to paper. I should mention, if anyone's really interested in the story of that, a year or so ago, there was an issue of Canadian Quilter where this quilt was on the cover. There's a fairly detailed article in there about how this quilt was made.
Wonderful. Okay, that sounds great. And just by looking at the quilt that this obviously wasn't a photograph you took of just all these animals happened to be standing side by side and walking away from humans and trying to send their message, right? So you compiled them one by one and you put them in this whimsical way where their butts are all facing us and there's birds on top of zebras and all kinds of things. But what made you choose to just have 1 or 2 animals kind of looking back?
To be honest, going back to what we talked about before, these are all my own photographs. So in a lot of cases, I just took the best picture I had of each animal that was looking away. And some of them happened to be turning around. And I just thought a little bit of that, like these are animals. They're not standing at attention. It's not an army. They're kind of lollygagging around. They're talking to each other. They're more relaxed than what people would be in that same situation. I liked having the cheetah there next to a couple of prey animals, but I wanted to indicate that there was a lot of solidarity between all the animals.
Yeah, that is a very good word. Yeah, and it's just a really strong message. It really makes you think twice about, what are we doing to this earth right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I loved pouring through the details of that quilt, and we have more quilts to come. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of quilts after the break. But in your creative space, in your creative practice, what brings you joy?
Just looking at those pictures of animals and remembering them, especially, well, penguins. What's not to like about penguins? As we'll discuss in the second half, a lot of my work has to do with penguins. I just think they're adorable and so impressive how they persevere in just obscenely difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
But they're still like among the cutest things in the planet.
Yes, you see on TV all the time, like they're all just like huddled together and like, how do they survive in those temperatures? And the babies live in between their little legs and all that kind of stuff. It's just fascinating to watch, but I can't wait to talk about some of your quilts after the break. But right now, what we're going to do is take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk all about Sue's studio space, a whole bunch more quilts, of course, and what's coming soon for her. We'll be right back. Picture this. You're standing on the ramparts of Edinburgh Castle, the Scottish Highlands stretching before you. In your hand, a tartan handbag with fabric and hardware you picked yourself. This isn't just a dream. It's our tour of Scotland to the Festival of Quilts, and it's happening July 21st, 2026. Imagine 13 days where every moment inspires you. You'll cruise legendary Loch Ness, ride the breathtaking West Highland Railway, and create your own tartan handbag in downtown Edinburgh. Watch border collies herd sheep on a working farm, explore natural dyeing at artisan studios in Glasgow, and here's the best part. You'll spend an entire day with Joe Avery at the magnificent Great Tapestry of Scotland, learning hand-stitch techniques you will love. Then cap it all off with 3 full VIP days at the Birmingham Festival of Quilts. This is Scotland at a meaningful pace. Time to create, connect with fellow quilters, and soak in inspiration that will inspire you for years to come. And if you act quickly, you'll get early bird savings of $100 US until February 1st, 2026. Don't wait, spaces are limited. Call the team at Opulent Quilt Journeys today. 1-877-235-3767. That's 1-877-235-3767. Or email info@opulentquiltjourneys.com. Scotland is calling. Your quilting adventure awaits. And we are back with multiple international award-winning quilt artist, Sue Sherman. Sue, tell us about your studio space. Where do you create?
Well, as I mentioned before, we're living in a house that used to house a family of 4, and now it's just me and my husband. So I do sprawl out a bit. I'm in my office, which is where I have my computer set up. But one of the other bedrooms is my sewing studio. So I've got my Bernina 780 and my Bernina Q20 in there. Not much else fits, but there is some fabric. And then when I'm actually doing my painting with Bic and dyes, I use my dining room table. So I kind of sprawl all over the table. And then I use my laundry room for the rest of the dyeing process. So yeah, I do sprawl all over the house. And I have a very understanding husband, which is half the battle.
That's sweet. Good. Okay. So what's your favorite time of day?
Definitely a morning person. Get up, have breakfast. These days I've been doing a little exercising after breakfast, but then I get right into it.
Yeah, so great. And what's the best thing you do for your own self-care?
Sometimes I just allow myself to work on something for fun. I right now I'm working on a blouse, just making myself something to wear because I don't do that very often. Yeah, sorry, I'm not a big one for long, relaxing baths or anything like that.
That's good, though. You have really demonstrated in this podcast that you have boundaries on your artistic time and you can take a step away to make a blouse to have a little bit of a change. That's really good for your mental health, I think.
I think so, and yeah, certainly in this career, I'm finding my mental health is as good as it's ever been in my life. So
Oh, that's great.
that's good.
Okay, so the quilts. We have already talked about Dear Humans and the wonderful success you've had with that quilt at shows around the world. But this is what we're here for, more quilts. So, what are some of the ones with a story? Well, actually, I'd love to start with Life in the Anthropocene. How do you even say that?
Well, there's a bit of discussion over that. I'd say Anthropocene, but I've also heard Anthropocene.
Anthropocene or Anthropocene. What does that mean?
Well, the Anthropocene is meant to be the geological era in which the actual geology and climate of the earth is impacted by humans. That's what the anthro comes from. And so it's not really an official geological age because, you can't define an age that's only been going on for less than 100 years. But it's a good way of talking about this time we live in where humans are having so much impact on the world. Yeah. And I thought it meant and it was actually my critique group.
Yeah.
Who I said, I like this title, Life in the Anthropocene, but I'm worried that if I call a quilt that, people are going to say, what's that mean? And my critique group, at least one of the people said, it'll do people good to have to look it up.
Exactly.
And I thought, yeah, I could live with that. And yeah, that is what's happened. People have had to look it up. But, people learn from the title as much as they've learned from looking at the piece. Yeah. And I think it is a suitable title for that piece.
Yeah, well, when I read that title, I was like, how do you say it? And I got to say it on a podcast. And I looked it up. And what I found was Anthropocene is a period of time where human activity has been the dominant influence on the earth, our climate. And so I thought, well, that's fascinating. And it works very well with the work. So tell us about the artwork now.
This is a piece, if you look at it from a distance, what you'll notice is some rather heavy colored geometric shapes. They're three-dimensional geometric shapes, and they're just sort of hanging there. And if you get up close to it, you'll see that there's a lot of animals on these shapes. And if you get really close, you'll see they've got hay and water, and they're kind of hanging out there. They can't get off. And it was my way of trying to sort of point out the absurdity of what kind of habitat we leave for wild animals. We just kind of take what we need and then say, well, the wild animals could live in the rest of that space without any consideration of whether it's suitable or not. And and the other thing I did in that piece was I wanted to make something meaningful. There's a lot of negative space in it. Yeah. And I could have just, quilted it with some all over pattern. And I thought, well, I'd really like the sort of ghosts of all the animals that have come before to be in that background space. So I looked up the names of there's just over 100 different animal species that have gone extinct due to human activity. Now, in some cases, there might be some, I think it's due to human activity. Certainly my research indicated it was, but, I might be wrong. But basically, I wrote their names in my own handwriting, all different sizes, all over the back of the quilt. And you can see it if you get up closely, you can see this writing.
Yeah, and I remember seeing it for the first time at Quilt Canada. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is a clear kind of slap in the face story about animals literally hanging in the balance, right? So I really was inspired by it. And it won the biggest award in Canada, didn't it?
It did. It won Best of Show. And I think I was kind of shocked. I'm still a bit surprised about it. I can remember somebody who part of Quilt Canada asking me later if this was something that was on my bucket list to win Best of Show. And I said, to be honest, it wasn't on my bucket list because I just didn't think it was achievable with an art quilt. And I wasn't prepared to just, make some other kind of quilt to try and win Best of Show. So it was a big surprise. And now I've won 2 Best of Shows with art quilts. So I guess the quilt world might be changing a little bit.
Yeah, it just might be. Well, congratulations on both of those big wins. And let's talk about more. So how about the King family?
The King family it's part of my new kind of series of they look a little bit like just regular animal portraits. But in this series, what I'm doing is trying to create a frame that is integral to the artwork and that is meaningful to the animal itself. And so in this particular case, it's the King family. So there's the family of king penguins. So you got mom and dad in the top, and then you got 3, and they're in like a picture oval. And then under that, you've got 3 smaller ovals, and they're I guess the next generation. And then at the very bottom, there are 5 even smaller ovals, and those are of all juvenile king penguins in various levels of growth. And but the frame is this really ornate gold thing that I imagine that Mr. King, the royalty, going to like a goldsmith and commissioning this frame, and it's got a crown on the top, and it's got a motto in Latin that means the early bird catches the fish. And it's got like rampant wild beasts on it. It's just meant to show royalty and it's a kind of in a fun way. So the whole thing is about I think 54 inches high, something like that.
Yeah, with the crown on top and all of those glorious little baby birds in their fluffy grandeur. They're so cute. And the sort of, I guess, is it whales on the side?
Those are orcas.
Orcas, yeah.
Yeah, those are the rampant beasts. You know how in a human, if you've got like a coat of arms for your family, you might have like a roaring lion.
Yeah.
So this is meant to be the orca, which is the big, scary wild beast. Yeah. And then the one on the top, the bird, is the skua, which eats a lot of baby penguins.
Wow. It's so glorious. And when you look at it, it looks like there's a lot of cut work in there, or maybe it's individual little tiny swirly quilts. How did you do that frame? Like, it just looks like unachievable to me. I don't know. I can't figure out how you did it.
Well, it's a whole cloth quilt.
Okay.
So I basically dye painted the oval portraits first, and then washed out the dye. And then I traced on the outline of the frame, and the frame is actually painted with metallic fabric paint. And then I quilted the whole thing, and then cut it out very, very close to the stitching. So there's a lot of cut work in it, and then finished off each edge with fabric paint that matches.
Wow. It's incredible. And you did a whole series of those, like with all kinds of different frames. There's the polar bear and the giraffe. And is there a lizard in there too? You did a whole series of them.
There's an iguana. The iguana's got the nice soft lava that they like to lie sunning on. And the giraffe's got acacia leaves, which is what they like to eat.
I love that frame. It's so cool. I was trying to figure out, what is that? It's some kind of flora, fauna, something like that, but it's beautiful. And the polar bear has like ice cubes, like ice around it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're talking about these, people are probably like, I want to see this. I want to see this. So I want to encourage everyone to go to SueShermanQuilts.com, and you can just pour. I mean, this, if you want to sit in your comfy chair with a cup of tea and pour through a gorgeous gallery on someone's website, this is the one to go to. She just has so many wonderful things to talk about. So let's talk about another one, Bad Boy of the Bluffs. Oh, wait a minute. What did the King family get? It got juried into a big show, right?
It did. It got juried into Quilt National. It's my first time ever being in Quilt National. I was very, very chuffed. And and I just actually got back a couple weeks ago from going to the opening of that. So that was a very big deal, and I'm very, very excited about that still.
That is such a wonderful show. If you don't know about that, it happens every second year. So it just happened this year, and it's at the Dairy Barn Arts Center every year. And Sue, if you were at that show, you might have heard some news at that show. Did you hear something?
I did. During the big prize award ceremony, they talked about the jurors for next year, and one of them was Brandy Maslowski.
I know.
And I
I'm
said,
so
"Oh,
thrilled.
yay, it's a Canadian."
Yes, I am absolutely thrilled. I'm just like over the moon about it. So I'm excited about that. I will be involved in that show for 2027 because it happens every second year. So excited to be talking about that in the future. But congratulations, getting into that show is a big deal, and it's a wonderful show to attend. How was it being in attendance at the show and seeing your quilt on the wall?
It was very exciting. And one of the things they do there that I've never seen before is on the Saturday morning before the public was in, all of the artists were there, and there were quite a lot, like, I don't know, 40 or 50 artists there, and just went around in front of every quilt, and the artists spoke a couple minutes about their own design process. So we get to hear from everybody about their own design process in this really quite safe space where it was only the artists talking to an audience of artists too. That was good.
Oh, what a nice kind of exclusive moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is so great. Okay, so let's move on to the next quilt, Bad Boy of the Bluffs. Tell us about that one.
Okay, well, we're coming from, we're going to the really fun one now. I really like this piece. This was a rockhopper penguin that I photographed in the Falkland Islands a couple years ago. And I was looking for a challenge to make a really big, just the head of an animal in as much detail as I could. And this photograph was technically one of the better photographs I'd made. But it had this lovely jaunty look with this really skanky looking feather in its mouth. And I just wanted to make it. And then not to be confused with Quilt National, there's a show called Grand National in Canada, and it had a call for entry for delights. And I thought, well, what's more delightful than a big penguin head? And I have to say as well that part of my story on that was I was recovering from surgery, and I needed something that I could work on that would take a long time, but that wouldn't be heavy. And painting with my thickened dyes, it's not very heavy work. And so I was able to just really take my time and put a lot of detail into that quilt. And I think it really shows. And it did get into that show, and in fact won an award of excellence there. I won a Janome HC9 sewing machine from that. So that was exciting too.
Oh, that's exciting. And you can see, it almost seems like the penguin is absolutely delighted with the feather he has in his mouth.
Yeah. It looks like Fonzie with a matchstick in his mouth.
Yeah.
It's that kind of looks very, very pleased with himself.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about another one called Sanctuary.
This one you might have seen at Quilt Canada the same year as Life in the Anthropocene.
Yep.
And it was done around the same time. And it basically started from hundreds of photographs of penguins that I had. And I wanted to show, it's just this weird, I don't know where the idea came from, this weird idea of what if we had to do climate adaptation in Antarctica so that the penguins actually needed an air-conditioned space, even in Antarctica, in order to breed. So I've got this penguin rookery underneath a geodesic dome, and you've got this big coal-fired furnace outside, belching smoke up into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But it's running a generator, which is running an air conditioning unit, which is cooling this geodesic dome. And this was another one where I was not really sure how I thought people would like it, that people might think it was too in your face with the message. But I've had people tell me they think that's their favorite of all the quilts I've done. So it was very encouraging to me to see the reactions that I got from that quilt. And yeah, I personally quite like it. And I really enjoyed making it. It's the only time I've ever been able to put my mechanical engineering experience to any kind of use in my quilting.
Yeah, and it's really useful to the public because it has such a strong message. And whether you even understand it or not, when you first look at it, it makes you think and it opens up a conversation, right?
It does. People do spend a long time looking at it because there's lots of little bits on it to look at.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. So let's talk about a couple more. I want to touch on At the Poles. What's that one about?
Well, this one happened. The idea came when I was actually on a cruise in Antarctica, same one where I took the photograph of the rockhopper penguins. I was without ideas for my next quilt, and I was doom scrolling on Facebook as you do. And I just saw something that said the best thing you can do to help as an individual, the best thing you can do to help with climate change is to use your vote. And I thought, oh, I bet I could do something with that in a quilt. And then I started thinking about penguins voting, and it sort of led me to the idea, well, if penguins voted, what would that look like? And so I set up this thing, and all the penguins are in natural poses. Nobody's doing anything they don't do in real life. But, they're picking ballots up out of a container and putting them in a ballot box that's labeled with the fish party or the octopus party. And then there's the candidates up there speechifying on their little rocks. And there's an election official with a very official looking badge. And it was a lot of fun to make. And it's actually, the way things have gone in the last couple of years since I've made it, I think it seems even more relevant now than it was then. So yeah. It's been a good one to see how it grows in the public imagination. And that one did win. I think it won a Judges Award last year at Quilt Canada.
Well, it's a lot of fun. And it's so incredible that you have your thoughtfulness goes right into it, all the way down to the detail of a little ribbon on, all the little things. So I just love that. Okay, there's one more I want to touch on, and it is called Ice Bear. So tell us about that.
Well, Ice Bear it's part of the same series that we talked about earlier with the King family. And This is where I wanted to frame a portrait of an animal with something that would be meaningful to the animal. So in this case, it's a polar bear. It wants ice more than anything else. Well, mostly it wants ice so that it can hunt seals. But I went to Churchill, Manitoba last year to take photographs of polar bears. And I learned so much about polar bears and took a surprisingly large number of photographs of polar bears. And they are just the most impressive animals. So I was what's the word? I feel so blessed that I'm able to go to places like that and then to be able to use it in my artwork.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, I just can't stress enough that if you're listening right now and you're just inspired by what we're talking about, you need to go to the website and take a look at the quilts. So before we go on to what's coming soon in your world, I want to talk about some of the names that how do you come up with the names for your quilt, like reticulated and things like that with the giraffe? Like, you have such fun names and they're very meaningful. I mean, obviously Anthropocene is a really good, meaningful term, that exactly what you came up with in the quilt, but tell us about some of the names.
Well, thank you for saying that. I always think I'm pretty crap at coming up with things,
no,
to be
so
honest.
Good.
I sometimes ask friends, but often just the asking and talking about it makes me come up with something. Mr. Reticulated is just because it's a reticulated giraffe and I couldn't come up with something better.
And there's a Mr. Secretary.
Right. And it's a secretary bird, but and I knew it was a male secretary bird because the guide told me it was a male. And the giraffe is definitely a male. Sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that. I just wing it. I do ask people. Life in the Anthropocene was mine, was my idea. Dear Humans was my idea, but quite a lot of the other ones are suggestions from friends. One of my favorite quilt names was the one I did of the rock hopper penguin with the little steampunk jetpack.
Oh, yeah.
That one's called Rocket Hopper, which I thought was a fabulous name. And my
Yeah.
husband came up with that. So,
Oh, yeah. And I also loved one named, it was Bashful Honu, I think, and it was a turtle.
oh, yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Honu is the Hawaiian word for turtle. And I just thought it looked bashful. It looked kind of like it was pulling away from the camera, and it might have been, or it might have just been that that's how its body language looked.
Yeah.
But it looked bashful to me, and yeah, bashful Honu just seemed to fit. But
Yeah.
I do agonize over the names quite a lot.
Well, and I have some favorite quilts that you have made of penguins. Huddle is one of my favorite ones with the 5 penguins all together. But my favorite, I think, is Antarctica with the tiny little baby, and it's all surrounded by this deep, rich red color. But there's so many to pour through. I just really encourage you to go take a look at the website. So SueShermanQuilts.com. I can't say that enough. But let's get into some big news coming soon. So you worked on a piece for a group called Soul Stories. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Soul Stories is a very exciting group, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. It was formed by Anne Marshall and Luana Rubin. And it is the only art quilting group I'm aware of where the connection has nothing to do with artistic style or with even people knowing each other before joining this group. But it's all about quilts that have a strong message and people who feel passionately about something that they want to get out there in front of the public. So I've felt very honored to be a part of this group. And the 2 pieces that I have are, they're actually quite big. One of the things we wanted with Soul Stories was to have big, impactful pieces with a strong message.
Okay, and I'll give you a little sneak peek into the winter issue of Quilting Arts Magazine, which is going to be our 25th anniversary issue. It's the silver 25th anniversary. We're going to feature this show in a gallery of quilts in that magazine, so you can look forward to that as well. So now it's time for the lightning round robin. It's a series of rapid fire questions, and it's super fun. Sue, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. What triggers inspiration for you?
One of 2 things. Either animals, I just see an animal doing something and I think that's got to be in a quilt, or totally random things that attack me while I'm least expecting it. I'll get this idea in my head and it won't go away, and I have to work out how to make it into a quilt. So, 2 different things, but very much related.
Okay, and how many UFOs do you have going on at once in your studio?
Preferably 0. I'm not a fan of clutter, and that includes clutter in my mind. And even if I even have 2 pieces going on at the same time, I can't completely clear my head to work on one while I know the other one is looming there.
Yeah.
So I am, and a lot of this has to do with the discipline of working in the consulting engineering industry for so many years.
Yeah.
I'm used to working on a project, finishing it completely, delivering it, and really compartmentalizing my time. And I find that really helps. When the quilt world is full of deadlines, we like to think of ourselves as freewheeling artists, but it's not always quite like that.
Well, it sounds like a good practice to do something start to finish and then move on to the next project. Okay, do you have any kind of annual creative escape?
Really kind of annually go on vacations with my husband and usually try to work in something that will allow us to get out into some kind of wilderness with a camera. I'm not a really intrepid traveler, but they're usually like there's a park, a national park somewhere, or something like that, and it gives me more animals to include in my quilts. But it's also just a lovely break to go on a cruise or a trip of some kind.
Okay, and what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning?
I work. I just love doing this. I get up thinking what I'm going to get done today and how I'm going to make something beautiful. And it's just a wonderful thing.
Well, it's great to know that you're waking up with a smile. You know you're probably doing the right thing then, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Has there been a mentor who's really influenced you along the way?
Well, I'm not going to say a mentor. I'm more a role model. I would say I did talk right at the beginning of the podcast, Hollis Chatelaine, that I took a class from. I did learn a lot from her in a week, and a lot of that stuck with me to the point that I still remember it 5 years later very strongly. And I also find, actually more than 5 years now, 7 years. And I follow her on Facebook, and I've actually in connection with a few other things, I've connected with her personally recently. And apart from a lot of things, she's also a part of Soul Stories, which is just amazing to be part of a group that includes somebody that you respect that much in your field. But I found her, well, she's a wonderful person, but also to be a wonderful person in terms of her art, both in terms of her technique for making it, and also her pieces are very strong. There's a lot of very strong emotion and activism in there too.
Yeah, inspiring. Okay, do you have any favorite collections of any kind in your home?
Okay, you're going to think this is silly, but I have a collection of little coronation teacups going all the way back to Victoria. And actually, I don't have one of Prince Charles or King Charles now. I guess I should get one. But all the other monarchs, even in Edward VIII, I've got a little coronation cup for him. Quite a few of them came from my grandmother, but I've just acquired them through various places over the years.
Oh, that's really cool. So are they the size of a regular teacup or just
they're all different things.
Oh.
One of the Henry VIII, or sorry, the Edward VIII one is really teeny.
Okay.
And the Victoria one, actually, I think the Victoria one might be a Silver Jubilee one. It's not her actual coronation because that was way, way long time ago. But that one's a normal size teacup.
Oh, cool. Okay, what's your proudest accomplishment?
I think probably, well, in my current career, my proudest accomplishment would be the 2 best to show quilts that I've had, Life in the Anthropocene and Dear Humans.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any furry friends in your studio?
Not in the studio, but we have a wildlife-friendly backyard. And the Canadian Wildlife Federation has a sort of list of guidelines that you can follow to make your backyard wildlife friendly. And we've been doing this for a few years now, and we get lots of chipmunks and squirrels and bumblebees and lots of things back there and lots of birds, obviously, orioles and cardinals and lots of grackles. So those are our little furry friends. Oh, and the bunnies.
Outside furry friends only.
Yeah. They sometimes come in, but only by mistake.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. And then you can even, boost your photos even more by taking photos of them as well.
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for braving the lightning round, Robin. That was really fun. So I've mentioned your website a few times at SueShermanQuilts.com. Please go look at it. If you're listening right now, please go and check out the gallery. You will be astonished and delighted. This is where we can find all the things we've talked about today. But where's the best place for people to connect with you on social media?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just Sue Sherman Quilts.
That's easy to find. Now, as we wrap up, Sue, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation today?
I want people to think about the environment and what we're doing in it and how we can do things better.
Oh, that's a great message to end with. Well, Sue, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brandy. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Okay, so that was my show with Sue Sherman. I remember the first time I walked up to Dear Humans at Quilt Canada, and I had to come back a few times, even just to get a photo or look at it closely, because there was always a huge crowd around it, like I mentioned earlier. I remember marveling over the detail in the animals. At first glance, it's a bunch of adorable animal butts, but the fur, you wanted to touch it. You weren't allowed to, but you wanted to touch the quilt, and the texture in the giraffe spots and the rhino muscles. It's just amazing. So I really hope one day you get to see it in person. I don't know if it'll be on display further, but it's an incredible quilt. And the combination of animals would normally never be comfortable side by side without eating each other, of course. The message with their backs to the humans, what are you thinking, people, is kind of like the message. So I just want to say congratulations on all of the wonderful success of this quilt. And the many other international award-winning quilts, of course. I love to feature Canadians doing wonderful things in the quilting world. And today, I loved sharing the story of Sue Sherman with you. Quilter on Fire is now on YouTube, and it's packed with brand new weekly content. What's waiting for you? Fun and easy tutorials to follow, exciting unboxings, exclusive interviews with top quilters and artists at the biggest quilt shows like Houston and QuiltCon. If you love Quilter on Fire on the podcast, you're going to be blown away by our YouTube channel. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Quilter on Fire on YouTube today. Let's ignite your passion for quilting. Thank you for listening to the Quilter on Fire podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps me reach more quilters just like you, striving for that perfect quilty lifestyle. Click on those 5 stars and share what you loved most about today's episode. Don't forget to hit the follow button if you haven't already. With new episodes dropping weekly, you won't want to miss out on the inspiring stories and tips we have in store. Until next time, dream big and have fun in the studio with the Quilter on Fire.